your life.
How much?
Thank you.
$10.
Good afternoon. This is the House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee. It's 2:30 on Thursday, April 24th, and we are going to hear from members of the Vermont Youth Council today. And I believe everyone is on Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the first person we would like to hear from is Nicole Miller. Unless you recommend a different order, Nicole.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Nicole Miller, for the record. I'm the Executive Director at Vermont After School. And I'm also here with my colleague, Brianne Smith, who's the Youth Engagement Coordinator, and she is the liaison, the primary liaison for the council itself. And so thank you very much for the time for the council to be with you. We have 4 members of the executive committee with us today, and they're each going to take turns speaking and sharing their recommendations. They do have a presentation, and the committee or the council has asked that the committee hold questions to the end, if that is permissible to you all.
Yes.
And with that, Brianne, who am I going to first?
Yeah, Aiden will kick us off, and I'll share my screen for the presentation.
Thank you. And if you all could just identify yourselves as you change presenters. Thank you.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. I am Aiden Otterman, the chair of the Youth Voice Committee. Sadly, our council chair, Harmony Beldivo, was unable to attend today's meeting, so I will be reading off some opening remarks that she wrote for you all. The State Youth Council was formed in 2022 with the purpose of providing, quote, young Vermonters an official means of providing advice on policies that impact young persons in Vermont, end quote. The council is currently composed of 26 youth and consists of the following 5 committees, each tasked with meeting and providing recommendations to legislators that apply to their topics: youth voice, education, equity and anti-racism, climate change, and youth mental health. Each committee has a chair, who are also members of the executive committee, which creates agendas and decides priorities for the council. So far, we've hosted 1 public hearing, sent a survey to Vermont students, written bylaws, and presented recommendations to the General Assembly and the governor. Throughout numerous meetings, we craft recommendations around what we believe to be the issues most affecting Vermont youth. We are planning to change our strategy to better align with the bienniums and legislative sessions. We will craft and present recommendations at the start of each biennium so that the second year of the biennium can be entirely focused on connecting with legislators to write bills and provide testimony. More on that later. The State Youth Council allows youth and legislators to impact one another, bridging the gap between generations of leaders.
Hi, everyone. My name is Astrid Longstreth. I'm the Climate Change Committee Chair. Just wanted to say thank you so much for having us here today and listening to our recommendations, and I'll get started. Human-induced climate change is a problem that affects all of us, both as Vermonters and globally. While the effects of climate change may look different here than anywhere else in the world, it will and is already affecting everyone. July of 2023 was the warmest July on record for the Earth. That same month, Vermont experienced catastrophic flooding, showing how natural disasters are becoming increasingly drastic. Not only are humans being affected by this, but every other species on the Earth is as well. It's up to us to stop it before it's too late. Vermont may be a small state, but we have the power to make a difference. As youth, we'll be the ones inheriting this world and this changing climate, and we believe that we should be part of the process to stop it. Therefore, the Vermont State Youth Council recommends the following. Recommendation 1. With the vision to increase compost participation across the State Youth Council recommends tax incentives be offered for co-ops, garden centers, and other outdoor centers to take compost for free. The companies could profit off of selling the soil while assisting the state, and the state could provide buckets and an online map of drop-off sites. Recommendation 2. In order to encourage leaning off fossil fuel usage in public transportation, have 75% of school buses and 100% of public transportation be electric by the year 2050. This builds off Vermont Trans' current plan to have all buses electric by 2050, And benchmarks could be to have 25% of school buses electric by 2040 and 25% of public transportation by 2030. Recommendation 3. In order to raise an environmentally conscious generation within the state of Vermont, the Vermont State Council recommends that climate change is instilled into education by requiring it within the curriculum of science classes. This could be done by the addition of a standard dedicated to the understanding of climate change. And as youth, this is important to us as we're the ones currently in the education system. And the first step to solving a problem is knowing how to solve it and educating oneself about it. So that makes this recommendation especially important. Recommendation 4. In order to protect Vermont's forests and keep stored carbon from being emitted into the atmosphere, the Council recommends the General Assembly pass legislation to conserve all current old-growth forests in the state by 2040. Because old-growth forests store a large amount of carbon, this is essential to stopping climate change. According to the Vermont Land Trust, less than 1% of Vermont's forests are old growth. Results shown from the State Youth Council survey indicate youth value the protection of Vermont's natural landscape and forests as the most important environmental issue. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for listening.
Alrighty, now we'll move on to education. Sadly, our chair of education, Taryn Burns, was unable to make it today, so I'm just going to be reading off of her kind of script here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Taryn Burns, and I'm a sophomore in high school. It's an honor to be here today as chair of the Education Committee on the Vermont State Youth Council. Today, I am here to present 3 key recommendations aimed at significantly improving educational opportunities for Vermont students, including expanding school choice for high school students, increasing state-funded preschool hours to support our youngest learners, and increasing the number of specialist teachers and certified school personnel across the state. These proposals stem from a shared vision to ensure every student in Vermont has access to an education that meets their unique needs and helps them thrive. Recommendation number 1, school choice expansion. Every student learns differently. In Vermont, some students thrive in traditional learning environments, while others require a different approach. Expanding school choice allows students to access educational settings, whether public or private, that best align with their needs, giving them the tools to succeed. We recommend that the General Assembly pass legislation to allow students the opportunity through school choice, public to private or public to public, to learn in a different environment and setting that will better fit their needs. We further recommend allowing a percentage of students per grade level to transfer to public or private schools that accept public funding. We recommend implementing a randomized lottery system to ensure fairness and equity in the selection process. And we recommend launching this initiative as a pilot program over 2 years, initially limiting participation to 10 to 20 students per grade level to evaluate its impact. Some key benefits include increased access, enabling students from under-resourced schools to find a better learning environment, equitable resource allocation, ensuring state funds follow the student, removing financial barriers, improved academic outcomes, students perform better when matched with schools suited to their learning styles, and data-driven decisions. The pilot program will provide valuable insights for future educational policymaking. We urge your support for this pilot program. By investing in school choice, we can provide every Vermont student with the opportunity to succeed in an environment tailored to their needs. Recommendation number 2. The Council recommends the General Assembly pass legislation to provide more funding for state-funded preschool to increase the 10 hours that exist now to 25 hours. While beneficial, this limited duration isn't, currently Vermont provides 10 hours of state-funded preschool weekly. While beneficial, this limited duration is insufficient for optimal cognitive and social emotional development. Expanding preschool hours will provide a stronger foundation for lifelong success. We propose, of course, as I said before, to increase the 10 hours that exist now to 25. We further propose that, by doing this, we ensure that children receive more time to develop critical early learning skills and equitable access to quality preschool education. Key benefits include cognitive development, extended hours support advanced critical thinking, language, and problem-solving skills, social emotional growth, this will enhance peer interaction and essential social skills. Equity in education helps all children start kindergarten on equal footing, regardless of family circumstances. and economic relief, eases financial and childcare challenges for working families. We ask for your commitment to expanding preschool hours, an investment that will yield long-term benefits for Vermont's children and economy. Recommendation number 3. The Council recommends the General Assembly pass legislation to increase specialist teachers and certified school personnel in the state. Schools across Vermont face a shortage of specialist teachers and certified personnel, such as counselors, special education instructors, and literacy coaches. This shortage creates challenges in providing students with the individualized attention and support they need to succeed. Investing in more certified school personnel will ensure students have access to the expertise and resources necessary for their development. We propose that we increase the number of specialist teachers and certified school personnel statewide and provide funding and incentives such as loan forgiveness or relocation bonuses to attract and retain qualified educators. Some key benefits include enhanced support. Specialist teachers can address unique learning needs, ensuring all students receive the attention they deserve, improve student outcomes, access to certified personnel, improves academic performance, emotional well-being, and career readiness. Addressing equity gaps, additional resources will help underserved schools bridge gaps in education equality. And finally, workforce development, supporting educators ensures a strong pipeline of qualified professionals for the future. We urge your support for this initiative to increase specialist teachers and certified school personnel in Vermont. This investment will empower schools to meet the diverse needs of all students and strengthen the education system as a whole. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Aiden, for sharing those recommendations for the Education Committee. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Nisha Hickok. I am part of the Executive Committee, but on the Council, I serve as the Chair of Equity and Anti-Racism. So I'm going to be presenting our recommendations to you today. So I want to start off by sharing our mission as a committee, because I think it's important. It guides kind of all the recommendations that we have. So we believe that all Vermont youth deserve to experience belonging and to have equitable access to opportunities. Education, accountability, and intentional implementation of policy on equity ensures we are preparing young Vermonters to be engaged global citizens. We recognize that many Vermonters, especially those with multiple marginalized identities, encounter systematic, cultural, and interpersonal barriers to accessing these rights. Our goal is, with these recommendations, is to level the playing field for all young people in Vermont. So our first recommendation was actually taken from the DEI report, which was presented by the Executive Director of Racial Equity back in January of 2024. The report ranges from recommendations on workplace to education, and of course, we felt the most fitting were the ones on education since they involve youth. So we just wanted to reiterate some of these recommendations as we feel they are important. So the first one is require the Secretary of Education to work with the Ethnic and Social Equity Standards and Schools Advisory Working Group to develop and maintain a model curriculum on teaching against hate speech and hateful imagery / symbols, enabling students to recognize discrimination and to provide teaching materials, technical assistance, and coordination to school districts and superintendents to implement. The second is tasking the Ethnic and Social Equity in Schools Advisory Working Group with developing a model curriculum on hate speech / hateful imagery and a model policy on racial equity. The third is school boards be required to adopt a policy on racial equity at least as stringent as the model policy to be developed by the Secretary of Education. Additionally, the Vermont State Youth Council recommends that the General Assembly adopt a statewide equity plan as recommended in the 2024 report. And all of this can be found on pages 13 and 14 of the report, or Appendix B. So a little bit of an explanation on why we thought that these recommendations were important. We feel that these kind of standardize things across schools in terms of instances of hate and as well as policy, and it wouldn't be a huge commitment in terms of time or money for the policy because many schools actually already have policies on racial equity. So this small change can make a really big difference for youth in Vermont. And then on to our second recommendation. A little bit of context is that When we were looking at the policies around discriminatory instances and disciplinary action, we thought that it was important to standardize some of the policies. And we think that it's important for an educational environment so that students don't worry about backlash when reporting things and people can feel safe and free to learn. So the first recommendation is that schools be required to carry out specific direct educational consequences for causing harm through an act of bias or prejudice. These consequences should be suggested by individuals trained in diversity, equity, and inclusion, including lessons, presentations, workshops, restorative justice practices, and dialogues related to the topic of discrimination, and a strong effort to change the pattern of their actions without requiring the victim to speak with their discriminator. In addition, we recommend that the General Assembly passes legislation to require schools to provide and maintain for students a feeling of comfort and obligation in reporting discrimination they experience and witness, and to provide an alternative way of reporting incidents other than verbally reporting to a teacher. Some examples are a box where students can write their reports and turn them in, or an email to a designated administrator or staff member. It would also require the administration to reach out to the students who caused harm while making an effort to not show that a student who was experiencing or there during the incident reported it, to maintain anonymity. So again, just a bit of background on this. Extensive research shows that in instances of harm when students are suspended, there tends to be not very positive outcomes. Students who are suspended tend to be suspended again. And there isn't much education or really a positive outcome for either party involved. So this policy would make it so that, and also a way of reporting would make it so that every person comes out of the situation with a positive outlook, and would also ensure a better learning environment for all students. And then our third recommendation, again, a bit of context. In the state of Vermont, English language learners are currently required to take the Access for ELLs test if English is not their first language. On this test, there are multiple domains. So there's listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And on every section, they can receive a score of 1 through 5. And if a student receives a 5 on every single domain, then they test out. So we have noticed that students are constantly having to take these tests while also showing that they have reached proficiency in English in their classes and in other environments in schools. Therefore, in regards to English language learners, the Vermont State Youth Council recommends that if a student scores 4 in all language domains on the Access for ELLs testing for 3 years consecutively without placing out, their proficiency shall be reevaluated in a more holistic manner. In this case, we task the ELL teacher at a given school with assessing the student's proficiency by surveying the student's teachers, counselors, and advisors, as well as the students themselves, to determine if they can be deemed proficient. This survey would evaluate a student's ability to complete assignments, participate in class, and succeed in challenging courses in regards to their knowledge of English. This process can also be initiated upon request after 2 years of a student scoring 4 in all language domains on the Access for ELLs testing. So again, we wanted to give these recommendations because they ensure that every student, regardless of their first language, has an equal opportunity to education. And as we see it, if students are having to take the test over and over again, it can be really discouraging and can also hold them back from being able to take the classes at the level of rigor that they desire. So that's kind of a bit of background. Those are the 3 recommendations for the Equity and Anti-Racism Committee. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nisha. My name is Claire Zanstra. I'm from Topsom, Vermont, and I'm the chair of the Vermont State Youth Council's Youth Mental Health Committee. Thank you for having us. Our first recommendation is on eating disorder facilities in the state. The Vermont State Youth Council's Youth Mental Health Committee's vision is to establish at least one inpatient eating disorder facility in the state. Our audience is teens from 11 to 15 who have severe eating disorders, including anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating. Currently, there are no facilities within the state that accept teens under the age of 15, and therefore families are having to uproot their lives and move if their child develops an eating disorder. Even if the facilities in Vermont let people under 15 enter, no one would be able to get in because the waiting lists are lengthy and eating disorders often need immediate care so that patients don't end up in the hospital. Due to the fact that there are currently no eating disorder facilities in the state for people under 15 and that the ones in the state have chronically long waiting lists, we on the Vermont State on the Youth Mental Health Committee and the Vermont State Youth Council as a whole recommend that the General Assembly pass legislation to have an inpatient eating disorder facility within the state that accepts people from the ages of 11 to 17. Our first action point would be for the General Assembly to provide funding for the building of an inpatient eating disorder facility. And our second action point would be that if that is too much to ask for this biennium, we would strongly encourage you to help fund/build the expansion of the COM Center in Burlington, which is an eating disorder facility. Our second recommendation is on mental health days. Our vision is to instate 3 excused mental health days per semester for middle and high school students in the state of Vermont. Students who have a diagnosis from a certified clinician would have 5 mental health days per semester. In schools that have a trimester system, there would be 2 days for students without a diagnosis and 3 to 4 days for students that have a clinical diagnosis. Having mental health days would help Vermont students learn in a space where they feel safe and feel that they can get their needs met. If the students don't have a home where they feel safe to be for a day, or if they don't have parents who accept that mental health days are important, the student should have the option to take the day in the principal or guidance counselor's office. Some opposers of this would say that kids who don't want to be in school would abuse this privilege. We on the Vermont State Youth Council understand that concern, but we also know from experience of being in schools that these people will skip anyway. Even if this gives the people skipping a free getaway, it will help a disproportionate amount of people get the rest necessary to work hard in school the rest of the time. A precaution for this worry would be that you couldn't take multiple mental health days in a row. Depending on the student's teacher, they could be asked to make up the day's work as homework or during the day they are taking, but not as part of the class. Due to the thoughts and feelings that we've placed before you today, and the fact that according to a study, 74% of parents think that kids should have mental health days, and 77% of parents who have let their student have a mental health day said that it was beneficial, according to CBNC on mental health days. The Vermont State Youth Council recommends that the General Assembly pass legislation to allow students to take 3 excused mental health days per semester, 2 per trimester, and allow students with a clinical diagnosis to take 5 mental health days per semester, 3 to 4 per trimester. These mental health days would not turn over into the next semester or trimester and would not be allowed to be taken in a row. It would also be an option for students to take the day in the guidance counselor's or principal's office. Students would be expected to make up work, but would be given extra time, same as if it were a sick day. Our third recommendation is on teen spaces in Vermont. Our vision is to make sure that every teen and youth space in Vermont has enough state funding to maintain or improve the services that it provides children, including snack and/or meals, acceptance of everybody, regardless of any part of the child's identity, access to school support, extracurricular activities, and a safe space for any teen. We also want to assure the teen spaces have high-quality staff who are educated on youth mental health, as well as working with youth with mental and physical disabilities. This would benefit youth tremendously across the state, giving kids social connections, trusted adults, free meals, and more opportunities. Our vision is for Vermont youth to have a place that they feel welcome in, away from violence, home life, stress, which is essential for a well-adjusted teen. Our audience is teens and people who run, direct, and work with and in teen spaces. Therefore, the Vermont State Youth Council recommends that the General Assembly pass legislation to provide multi-year grant funding for teen centers that apply for it annually, assure that teen spaces have high quality staff and diverse and accessible opportunities for all, and fund the creation for new teen spaces. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you, Claire, and we're back to me. Hello, as I said before, my name is Aiden Otterman, and I am the chair of the Youth Voice Committee. I'd like to start by thanking the committee for having us today. It is a pleasure that we get to share our recommendations with you all. So jumping right in, we at the State Youth Council believe that the youth of Vermont, who make up 24% of our population, deserve a voice in shaping the future of our state. Their input is vital to ensuring that the needs, values, and aspirations of younger generations are reflected at both the state and local level. With that in mind, the first of our 3 recommendations is for the governor to sign off on the repeal of the February 1st, 2026 sunset period of Act 109 included in the fiscal year 2026 budget. The repealing of Act 109 sunset would ensure the continuation of the important role that the State Youth Council plays in providing a voice for Vermont's youth in state politics. Furthermore, it will give the council more time to work on amplifying youth voices and less time defending its own existence. Our second recommendation is to pass a resolution supporting and empowering municipalities who wish to extend voting rights to 16 and or 17-year-olds in local elections and town meetings. We believe such a resolution would provide youth with a direct voice in their government, fostering a generation of youth with a stronger sense of civic responsibility. This resolution would further ensure that Vermont's tradition of direct democracy on the town level will endure, giving younger generations an earlier opportunity to understand and value this civic practice. Our third and final recommendation for this section, which we jointly created with the help of the Education Committee, is to pass legislation directing the Vermont Agency of Education with creating a survey for students to evaluate their teachers' performance in class. This survey would be presented to students grades 6 through 12 at the midpoint and endpoint of each term. Once the surveys are completed, they would be shared with their respective teachers for review. The survey, in our view, would contain questions like, quote, how well does your teacher/instructor explain course material, using a 0 to 5 rating scale with only a select few open-ended questions. A survey like this could provide students with a voice in their school community and teachers with professional development opportunities and growth. Now moving on to recommendations on existing legislation. The State Youth Council recommends that Senate Bill 8 be passed and signed into law, expanding eligibility for coverage under the Dr. Dinosaur program to all Vermont residents under 26 years of age or below 312% of the federal poverty level. This expansion would provide a safety net towards those who may not have access to employer-sponsored insurance or who are transitioning through different educational and professional stages, ensuring continuity of care during a formative period of personal and professional development. Finally, the State Youth Council, prior to its passage and signage into law, had planned to recommend that House Bill 2 be passed, increasing the minimum age at which a child may be subject to juvenile delinquency proceedings from 10 to 12 years old. We believe raising the minimum age allows for the implementation of alternative measures which can be more effective in addressing the underlying causes of juvenile misbehavior. While the Council continues to support House Bill 2 as introduced, we'd like to express our opposition to the amended version, which extended the deadline for implementation of the Raise the Age initiative. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Aiden, for sharing those recommendations on Youth Voice. So we're going to shift into kind of a different area of our presentation today. When the council was initially created, we were tasked with addressing Vermont's economy and keeping youth in Vermont, as well as the preservation of Vermont traditions. So there are a few recommendations that we crafted that are around those specific issues that aren't necessarily specific to any committee. And I'm going to be sharing these on today. So the first is, again, a recommendation on youth in Vermont's economy and keeping youth in Vermont. The council recommends the General Assembly create a state fund for affordable housing in the state. To support this fund, the General Assembly should consider installing a progressive inheritance tax of 5% to be applied to Vermonters receiving an inheritance of $250,000 or more. Another consideration would be to use revenue from the already existing estate tax for the Affordable Housing Fund. This tax money will go into a state fund for affordable housing using different strategies such as utilizing abandoned buildings and dorms when empty or building up instead of out. The next recommendation, again on youth in Vermont's economy and keeping youth in Vermont, is the council recommends taxes are realistically payable and income-based. If an area has many out-of-state taxpayers, the council recommends the residents the residents of that area are not subject to higher taxes, as is common in towns like Warren, where, for example, the majority of homes are owned by out-of-staters, resulting in extremely high taxes and rates for residents in the town. And then these next two recommendations are again on preserving Vermont's traditions and the future of Vermont's rural character, activities, and professions. The council recommends the Vermont Chamber of Commerce avidly promote local business and urge locals and tourists alike to support them, allowing for more local job opportunities. To uphold Vermont's tradition of being a green mountain state, the council recommends the state of Vermont ensures its national forests are protected from the federal threat of allowing them to be bought by private owners or exploited for their resources. And then to improve the health and food security of Vermont youth and to support Vermont's farming tradition, the council recommends that Vermont's public schools are to be required and assisted to provide free school meals all K through 12 students and to use a certain amount of food from local farms in school meals. To uphold Vermont's tradition of being a direct democracy at the town level, the council recommends that Vermont public schools educate students on the history and importance of town meeting day and the days and weeks leading up to it and strongly encourage students to attend. So yes, those are kind of the general recommendations, and now I will pass it on for next steps.
Thank you so much, Nisha. Shifting gears a little bit, I'd like to finish off our presentation here today by sharing with you all some next steps we will be taking as a council. The first of these steps is that we will be opening the State Youth Council application earlier in the year from now on in order to onboard new SYC members before school starts. Usually the application is opened a little later, but opening it sooner makes it easier for us to put our new members through a proper orientation process. We opened the application just a few days ago, and it will be open until the end of May. Another change we'll be making, as was mentioned in the opening introduction, is that our typical annual recommendations will now be biannual. From now on, the State Youth Council will be providing recommendations at the beginning of the legislative biennium with a short period for review in the fall. This leads us into our last change, which will be our shift from recommendation to advocacy work in the second year of the biennium. By switching from annual to biannual recommendations, the council will be allotted time in the second year of the biennium to focus on connecting with legislators, responding to requests about proposed legislation, advocating, and testifying in favor of our recommendations. We believe these changes will bring about a more productive era in the State Youth Council's tenure. Again, we thank you very much for having us here today. We hope to work with y'all in the future in hopes of making Vermont a better place for its youth.
Thank you very much. We'll probably have a couple of questions, and I'm going to start out with a question on how youth are chosen for the council. We understand that there's an application process and who reviews the applications, and currently, when is that done again?
I can answer that question. I was actually one of the people previously who kind of assessed the applications. So last year, it's kind of been different every year because we only have had one round of applications while the committee has members on it. But last year, I believe we opened up the application maybe beginning of summer. or close to the end of the school year. And then students had the ability to apply, and then around like midsummer, I believe, a group of us got together. It was a completely random group of either youth leaving or randomly selected youth on the council. And we just kind of reviewed every single application. It was all anonymous, so we didn't know people's names or anything. And typically the terms are 2 or 3 years, or at least for the first half. In the future, it will all be 2 years. But basically half of the council leaves, and then with every review cycle, a new group of 14 are selected. Hopefully that answers your question fully.
Yes, so you're thinking about opening up the application process earlier, like towards the end of the school year, like this time of year?
Yes, because in the past, we found it difficult to kind of align with the legislative session and get our recommendations out to you all in time for them to be implemented and to discuss them more. So our hope is that by starting the process earlier, we can do everything else earlier.
So you'd have recommendations for us before the start of the first year of the biennium, which is in January of an odd numbered year?
Yes, that is the hope.
Okay, great, thank you. Also, there was a funding request that we saw very briefly. Can any of you speak to what that funding request was and how it's used?
I can speak to that, and then council members feel free to jump in. So right now, Vermont After School's role for this council is really to provide the logistics support to, as my colleague says, do the care and feeding of the council. So we help with logistical support, communicating one-on-one with council members, helping prepare this testimony on their behalf. So things like that. And so right now, this work is supported, as well as the stipends that the youth council members receive, and any support towards mileage for in-person events and other associated costs for the council. That's all supported right now through the Department of Health through Title V, which is federal funding. I know that there's been a little bit of back and forth with the Department of Health on the funding. My understanding from the department is that they're not pursuing a funding request this year that is outside of Title V, but it is something that they are hoping to maybe work on in the future.
Thank you. So do you know if that Department of Health funding through Title V is separate from what was requested from the legislature?
I'm not sure. You would have to double check with the department on the nuance of that.
But they handle all your handle all your funding requests?
Yes, so we have a grant agreement with them that also supports other work that Vermont After School does, and the State Youth Council support is one piece of that.
And you mentioned students, you mentioned a stipend. Is it the student members who get the stipend?
Correct, yes.
And are you able to share the amount of the stipend that they receive, and is it annually?
It's per meeting, and Brianne, please correct me if I'm incorrect. It's $50 for a virtual meeting, which is 90 minutes. And so occasionally the council will meet in person for a longer meeting, and then we would adjust that amount appropriately.
So you don't often meet in person?
They primarily meet online. Yep.
And your student members are from all over the state, so that makes sense?
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? I guess I have another question, and it might be for any of the committee chairs. How is a student member assigned to a committee, and what's the process for coming up with your committee's recommendations to the legislature?
I can answer this one. So you're at the beginning, when you're accepted onto the council, you fill out an online form and you put your top 3 choices of what committee you would like to be on. And then once you get onto the committee, there's, at least when I got onto the council, there was an in-person meeting where we discussed all of the things that we had hopes and dreams for this. It was originally this year, but I guess this biennium now. And then we kind of narrowed it down over the course of 3 meetings, I think, 3 online meetings, to the 3 to 5 that everyone presented.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Rep. Waters Evans has one.
Hi, thanks. Are you prepared to answer a couple policy questions I had just from listening to your presentations? I have a couple. The first one is I wanted, oh, maybe you can't answer this because I believe you read it on behalf of the education chair. But my question was if anybody cares to address this at all. I was hoping to get a little insight into how you arrived at your recommendation to have school choice between private and public schools as opposed to, I guess the alternative would be to, be bolstering public schools with our public money. Do you have any thoughts on that, or is that out of your purview? Or are you just reporting on behalf of someone else?
Yeah, I can answer this. As I mentioned in the beginning, I was reading off a script from Taryn Burns, our chair of the Education Committee. I don't know much information about that, so I would say that would be something that we can reach out to you in the future. I can give that question to the committee, and maybe they can email you. But yeah,
Sure.
No one here in the meeting, I think, has much information on that.
Okay, that's what I figured. And then my other question is, so is there currently a differentiation between sick days that you take? It's like I have teenagers that are in high school, and when they tell me they need a mental health day, I say sure, and then they stay home as a sick day, which I guess, it's mind and body, we're all the same, right? But can you tell me what you think the benefit would be of designating a mental health absence from school as opposed to just taking it as a regular, I'm not going to school today because I'm sick or because I don't want to go?
We feel that the difference would be that because when you take a sick day, there's only so many sick days you can take in a semester or trimester before you have to have a meeting with your homeroom teacher and then the principal and then sometimes whoever runs your school district if you take too many sick days. And adding this element of mental health days would help students who actually get sick a lot to but also need mental health days to have the capability to take mental health days without having to go to meetings.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Also, I like the idea of kind of destigmatizing the need for mental health care, feeling like you're not really okay to go to school if it's something that's mental rather than, a fever. I think it's an interesting idea. But I had one more question, if you don't mind. Sorry, I had a lot of questions. Someone said that the idea was to have realistically payable taxes. Can you explain to me what that means? I like the idea of it, but I'm not quite sure what that meant.
Yeah, I mean, I can say I read off those recommendations on behalf of our chair. Personally, I wasn't exactly at the conversation where we talked about it in depth. I don't know if anyone else on the council has thoughts on that.
I was there during some of the meetings where we talked about that, and I think by realistically payable, I think they just mean kind of like adjusted. Maybe I don't know if it's adjusted for income, but basically it just means affordable taxes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate all your hard work.
Representative Stone?
Could you just go through and tell us what schools you go to?
Oh, sorry, you go.
Sorry, Astrid. So I'm originally from Heinsberg, so I went to Champlain Valley Union High School, but I'm currently a first year at Middlebury College.
Then you can pass it to somebody else. Like if you just spoke, maybe that'd be the easiest thing. Select someone to pass it to.
I guess Astrid can go next.
Yeah, thanks. I live in West Bolton and I go to Mount Mansfield Union High School. Aiden, you want to go?
I am from West Topsom and I go to Thetford Academy.
I'm from Topsom and I have a kind of complicated schooling system, but I attend class. I'm homeschooled, but I attend classes at Waits River Middle School and at Potcham High School in Montpelier.
Well, thanks.
Do any additional questions? Well, thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate it and appreciate your patience waiting for us because I think you requested a while ago to be heard.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This saw the start of this, just wanted to see how things would go.
Anyway, thank you for that.
Cool. Yeah, thanks
And
for being
if
here.
General Harder and Rep Morgan are in the hall, you can let them know that they swing in for the next.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because they're supposed to be at 3:30.
He's gonna.
Yeah, no, we had them at 3.
Oh, he's gonna call. Oh, we have about
We
3.
have it for free?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to ask any questions.
No,
thought you were
I
trying
did
to kill
too.
something.
No, I was almost like.
Yeah,
We have
well,
3
sorry.
stars. See right where you belong.
If I met an expert.
Yes, yes.
Please, yes.
Misunderstanding.
Yeah, I didn't do a
I
good
wasn't
job of
running.
time management, but
Just let you guys play.
I thought they were gonna tell us like how they were set up in their presentation.
General, how are you?
Good.
Sorry,
How are you?
to be running late.
That's fine, ma'am. We,
Very military-like thing to do.
It's for the children.
That's true. We serve at your pleasure.
So we have General Knight on the phone, is it?
It appears we have General Knight on the phone behind General Harder.
So.
Yeah, we're stacked. Yes. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm well. Are you talking to me or General Knight? Okay. Big sir, I'll let him answer.
That's all right, but we got you here in 3D. Yeah, we're continuing some testimony on S56, and it's to create an office of the New American. And with your organizations being very active with those communities, we wanted to get your perspective on this legislation. Where right now we're looking at a study committee for recommendations moving forward. So, and I know we've had a lot of conversations in and around this subject matter, but I was hoping to just hear from you gentlemen within the context of this.
Wait, and I'll defer to General Knight first and fill in anything.
Okay, wonderful. General Knight, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me or am I still muted?
Nope, we hear you clear, sir.
Solid comms, General. My apologies for not being there in person down in Little Rock at the Army Senior Executive Council meeting. So I can tell you just a quick read ahead. If you don't mind, I'll give you the members of the committee a few statistics and why I think, at least initially, I support certainly establishing a study of putting together some type of oversight or management of the New American population. So in our Air National Guard, since 2020, we have 14 non-citizens have joined and 11 have gained their citizenship through service in the Guard. In the Army National Guard, we have 35 lawful permanent residents, 14 enlistments since 2022. 5 we know of have become citizens. There may be as many as 14 additional who've not yet reported earning their citizenship. We count on them to report that to the chain of command. Our job, and we've made it a part of our job, is to facilitate submission of the N-426 form, and that's to help expedite citizenship through their service in the Guard. Of course, all of this is predicated on this population, like anybody, to meet our standards. They pass the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, local and national agency check, meet medical standards, and then successfully complete their initial entry training and their advanced individual training and tech school. So we focused a great deal in my mind, and we've seen this, kind of bear fruit for us. There's a growing population of talent out there in this underrepresented population. So we've engaged in some overt marketing to that very population. And we've gone so far as to craft marketing materials, recruiting posters in their native language. And we've actually had soldiers from Nepal, for instance, translate for us and help us craft that product to further market the Guard to this population. And what we found, at least initially, is the propensity to serve, their desire, in many instances, is greater than we're finding in our own U.S. citizens. So the short version for me, we're short-sighted to overlook this growing talent pool, and that's both as a Guard and as a state. And as I mentioned in my State of the Guard on the 2nd, we've got members of our Guard, and you'll bear with me, the list is pretty extensive, from Somalia, Nigeria, Bolivia, Togo, Sierra Leone, India, Bhutan, Nepal, Haiti, Jamaica, and I'm sure there are more that I'm missing. That's just off the top of my head. So, Mr. Chair, short version, I think it's a good idea. As this population continues to grow in Vermont, I don't know why we wouldn't continue to pursue and market what, in my view, is a pretty incredible talent pool. And that's what I've got today. And General Hart, if you've got anything you'd like to add, please feel free.
Brigadier General Hank Harder, Deputy Adjutant General for the state of Vermont. Thanks, boss. Yeah, I'll just tell a personal story, and I know you have a lot of these as well, but we have a really outstanding airman named Mahat Abdullahi, originally from Somalia, came over here, grew up through high school in Winooski, found his way into the Air National Guard, enlisted, and fast forward to now, he's a senior NCO. He's deployed twice. He's part of our mission support group and services. And he's already a leader on the Vermont Air National Guard campus. And as his commander, as his group commander, I got to attend his naturalization ceremony in a small Vermont gym, and his whole family was there. And to see the pride on his family's face, and then the pride he has in him. And I think the Guard has been a pathway for him to be successful in Vermont. And he's now a kind of a star on campus, if you will. And others look to him, and he's a leader. I'm sure he has a lot of those traits naturally, but I would echo General Knight as we're finding, particularly folks that are coming from war-torn, some third world countries, that, boy, an opportunity to earn a paycheck and be part of a team and to get some great skills, whether they're provided by the Army or the Air Force, they're really they're ready to take on that challenge, and we're ready to bring them in as long as they're qualified into the unit. And then, a faster track for citizenship is quite I think it's an admirable goal for them, and it's something they want to do, and it's a way that we can give back to them. So I would echo with General Knight, and I'm sure both of us would entertain any questions.
And Mr. Chair, if I could add one thing, and something that's important, I'd like to keep reminding folks of our partner recruiting initiative for military and employers. And this is a very population that we want to pursue to grow a dual career track, not only service in the Guard as traditional drilling members, but also into Vermont civilian workforce, and especially through the education benefits, working with the legislature that the Guard now offers, we're creating a more educated, more employable population. So this is, I fail to see any shortcomings in this. This is just a good idea.
Thank you for that, sir. Rep. Pango has a question.
Thank you. Not really a question, but I'd like to prompt you to, either one of you, to speak a little bit about some of the challenges that I've learned about through your presentations in the past on this subject that these new Americans face with trying to join the military, and how perhaps an Office of New Americans would help with this, these certain situations, like, for instance, language barriers and achieving competencies on tests and things like that.
Sure, I'll let General Knight field that.
Thank you, Representative Hango. One of the more significant challenges is the language proficiency, and that's usually what gets our new American population kind of jammed up when it comes to passing the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. They have the skills. It's just a matter of translation. So locally, what we've done is we bring in soldiers that are from the nation of the applicant, and they will work with them on language proficiency. And we do that out of Hyde. These soldiers and airmen come in on their own time to help them learn English. And I think we've also, I'll have to validate this, but I'm pretty sure we've leveraged English teachers from our education committee or education community to come in and do that same thing again on their time and help these young people get ready to pass the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, also known as the ASVAB. So that's the biggest one for me. And the other part of this, of course, is the marketing and getting the word out to these communities that we're here. At least come take a look at us. There's a lot of goodness for those that want to serve, and we're finding that there's a significant number that want to do that. Closer to home, stuff that I work with at the national level, those are things that we're going to deal with, the military entrance processing stations, medical standards, all of those things. Those are big national level fixes that we can't really correct quickly. Those belong to DOD. But closer to home, we can at least get them ready to help navigate. It's complicated, plenty of obstacles, and our job is to help facilitate that and get them ready. Probably a bigger challenge is, for instance, they have to have a high school diploma or at least a GED. And some of these folks are coming from places where they've lost everything. They brought nothing with them. So recreating those documents and getting some level of proof that they have a high school diploma that meets muster for service in the military is a challenge. Birth certificates even. So documentation is a big piece of that.
Yeah, Rep. Hango, just to add to that, just looking at S56, I think the proposed membership in the study committee is, it makes sense. But just one to kind of piggyback on General Knight's point is one member appointed by the Commissioner of Labor. As we all know, we talk about all the time workforce development. So I think to what General Knight is alluding to is, we need more folks in the Guard, both Air, Army, and Air. And I think, obviously our community and businesses need more qualified workers. And I think this study committee could potentially help connect the dots. And to your point, maybe have services that the legislature might know, or the different positions on this committee might be able to help with some of the new Americans that may or may not be interested in coming into the Guard. Yeah.
And one of the other challenges I know that we have is, and I have worked with Vermont Refugee Resettlement. In many cases, they get them to Vermont, but it's in essence a pass-through. They're going to states where they have a larger diaspora of their population. I'd like to see us keep more of this population in Vermont so they can derive benefit through service in the Guard and find employment and grow our workforce.
Rep. Pisno.
How are these young men and women finding you? Is it through ROTCs in high school in the state of Vermont, or are they just walking into the office and say, I want to join?
I'll let General Knight.
I missed part of that question.
I was asking, how do they find you? Are there programs through guidance counselors in high school, or are they just simply walking into the office and saying they want to learn because they want to become a citizen? It seems great.
It's a little bit of it's a combination of things. Some of it is our overt marketing to this population. It's a network, and we certainly leverage that. Our recruiters are out canvassing. Our recruiter of the year, Sergeant First Class Larissa Woods, she works out of Winooski, which has the most diverse population in Vermont, and she's very well established in Winooski High School. So it's in person. That's probably the best way for us to do it. And then word of mouth through family relationships, networks, friends, to get that word out. I think there's more effective ways to do that. Obviously, we can capitalize on social media, other areas where that population focuses.
Yeah, I was just going to echo, whether it's new Americans or, native born citizens here, that word of mouth is key. And almost every drill weekend, I'll get out on base and say, hey, what brought you into the Guard? And more than 50%, it's, hey, I had a friend, or I did have a brother that or sister that joined the Guard. Sometimes it was like a dare, it was a challenge. Like, hey, who's ready to do this and go down and join? So, but that word of mouth is key. And that's why for us, we call it internal leads. That's kind of our biggest return on investment. If we're able to bring somebody in for a tour and they know Mike Morgan and they've known Mike and growing up in Milton, and then he's able to make an introduction, and then we have an airman or a soldier show them around. It's a lot of word of mouth. Those are our best recruits generally.
Yep, that's correct, Hank. I think one of the other challenges that we have, and we've come a long way, and this actually goes back to COVID, is establishing trust in those communities, because they may have come from a place where the military is not an organization to be trusted. So, trying to kind of lift the veil on that and allow them to come see us is tremendous. And becoming transparent in who we are and being very overt in the opportunities that come with service in the Guard, because we're obviously vastly different from where many of these folks have come from.
Any other answers?
It's just a comment, and I think General Harder, General Knight would agree, is also the educational opportunities we offer. I know we beat that drum hard because we can give them money and dollars where they may come from families that couldn't afford otherwise to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And the other thing, and again, unfortunately, the Guard remains one of the best kept secrets. It's the healthcare, dental care, life insurance, education benefits, blended retirement system, which is now more like a 401k. So they're contributing to a retirement. So there's a lot of benefits for a part-time job. And then, of course, that, if we get our way, leads to full-time employment, whether in the Guard, because that's what happened with Mahat Abdullahi, or within the civilian sector.
Repstone?
Full disclosure, I like this bill as one of the sponsors on the House side. But I know it's also like a military spouse, something that I like about this bill, the scope of it is looking at professional licensing, for example. So I know that my family, when they immigrated over here from Egypt, like some of them were accountants and doctors and whatever, but then they moved here and they didn't have that licensure. So I'm just thinking about some of these people who may join y'all, but their spouses may have been nurses in Egypt and the need to come here and figure out how to get that licensure so they can re-enter the workforce. Y'all really can't help so much with that piece, but that's what this office could help with, to make sure that the whole family is, re-entering the workforce and feels supported and whatnot, because that also has an impact on the service member if their spouse is not feeling fulfilled at home and like they're contributing to the community, that can make it more challenging. So I just want to point that out. Getting the whole family.
Yep.
And make one job. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And there are other stories out there, and it's a frustration for me personally, and it's a very complex process, and trying to define what status somebody is here in. They have to have the I-551 card, the green card, to be here as a lawful permanent resident. Student visas don't allow for that. If they're here in a refugee status, even. I have a gentleman, I can't remember his last name, but he's from Afghanistan, Musadik, Ashakula Musadik, and he served with and alongside the U.S. military as an interpreter. He was in the midst of his doctorate. He was going to become an MD in Afghanistan, was in school when he was forced to leave. Just last year, I believe, got his wife finally. I think she fled to Pakistan, and we were able to get her to Vermont to be with her husband. He is now working, I think, probably as an LPN, I believe, in Central Vermont Hospital or a medical assistant. That's the kind of folks we want to have in our Guard. And I just have to get him to the right status so he can be here as a lawful permanent resident. And working within the federal system to get that done has been a remarkable challenge.
Anything else for the generals?
Thank you.
No.
Pleasure.
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, sir. And good luck with the rest of your trip. Travel safe. Thank you, General
Thank you, sir.
Harder. And that seems like it's pretty much it for the day. So